is to elucidate and document Tom's experiences, impressions, and interpretation of some of the Caribbean art and folkways. Tom, in view of your contributions to Caribbean folk art and music, I would like you to evaluate some of the Caribbean art forms using historical and cultural assimilation to highlight the present state of the arts. First, we should discuss your boyhood days and what your influences were.
Well, I'll try to tell you, it's a pleasure of mine. There's so many things to recall about my boyhood days. The first thing I should say, my father was a musician, a violinist, and he was highly a disciplinarian. And it was his desire for me to follow his footsteps in his trade, his profession also, and even his mannerism and things in the line of standard. And that was a bit tough for me. He insisted that I should learn the violin. A little did he knew I loved the drums. And he was the last person to realize that I didn't like the violin in as much what he taught me on the violin. It was a wonderful foundation for my experience today, because it afforded me to be able to get through composing, all these kind of things, and led my band. So I have no regrets on that. And I must tell you further to this, it was his desire for me not to be mingling with friends too much, because he felt that would have tampered my prospect. But as a boy, and then we were 5 brothers, 6 sisters in the family, so it was difficult for him to control that.
Yes.
Because my brothers, we all were into everything. But my father was so much a disciplinarian, as I said in the inception, that he won me. And I was the only one he could have controlled. But I loved him too. And today I have no regrets, because all the things that he taught me, I was able to put them into force. And when it comes to drumming, and drums as a whole, in the country where I belong, Guyana, we were in the East Coast. Guyana, as a matter of fact, is divided into 3 counties, Essequibo, Demerara, and Bubbies. And there's 6 races: East Indians, black, Chinese, whites, Amerindians, and Portuguese. But the 2 major races was East Indian and blacks. And they had a lot in culture. The East Indians had the various kind of drumming, different religious cultures, and the black also. And I made it my duty, because I was influenced with the drumming. Even the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army was a major feature in various villages. And I used to make it my duty, because I loved the drums. All I wanted to hear was the drums.
Yes.
In every cultural thing in Guyana, I made it my duty to learn something about the drumming. Even the East Indians, they have various type of religious presentations, and they have the drumming to suit the different rhythm structure. Just like the blacks, they had a comfort, kwek, and calypsos. We had a different trend. I guess you were going to ask me about that. That's interesting.
Shanto. Versus the calypso trend.
Right. Well, Trinidad calypsos had a different presentation, different rhythmic beat. But the difference between Shanto and calypsos, Shantos was a kind of rhyming, putting words together, and the rhythm structure were different. The calypsos had a basic rhythm structure, and then they improvised on the rhythm. But the Shanto, as I was told in the inception, when I got interested, it was something came from a special tribe from Africa. And the composers, names like Zeta Martindale, Joe Coggins, And all those famous guys, they were the ones who were trying to portray the Shanto. And then we had Bill Rogers, the first recording artist we had in Guyana, who came to the United States of America and recorded for the RCA. And he was definitely trying to say, we are not Calypsonians, they are Shanto singers. But he recorded in the United States of America, and although he had a little touch of Calypsos, he was trying to portray something about Shanto. That's as far as I can say about Shanto.
But if you were to go back a bit further in terms of your boyhood days, really what type of instrument, I'm kind of interested in what type of instrument you were exposed to during those times. I understand that there were some form of bamboo instruments.
Okay, well, when it comes to the bamboo instrument, that was originated from Trinidad. Because when I made my first trip to Trinidad, that's 1936. I went on a holiday there, and I was high in music, interested in music, so I made it my duty to explore every possible thing that I could have learned about music. And the bamboo band was highly featured in Trinidad, especially the carnival celebration. There are various types of bamboo bands. The bamboo, you know bamboo, it's from the tree. They cut the various sizes, and it's hollow. In the middle is hollow, and they bore bigger holes and different sizes, and they hit it on the ground, and you're surprised to know the various songs they got. And they got a lot of rhythm from that thing. And that was the thing that featured those days, before steel band. No way steel band wasn't around. So they celebrated with bamboo bands in Trinidad.
Well, I guess in terms of the turn of the century, when the American, if dating back from the First World War to the Second World War, the American influence in the Caribbean in terms of having their bases, one base was prominent in Guyana, the other one in Trinidad, and a couple of the other Caribbean territories, Jamaica, Barbados. During that time, were the musicians in connection with or used to play for the Americans?
Okay, well, let me tell you about that. Again, I was very fortunate because I toured Trinidad with my band. And after returning from Trinidad, I get organized with the air bass in Guyana. That was the first time I started to play the bass for the Yankees. I played for the Yankees in Chaguaramas, Trinidad, Marcoid, Officers Club, NCO Club, Service Club. But I established myself in Trinidad first before in Guyana and for the Yankees. Unfortunately, the Labor Department came in and we had to leave Trinidad to return back to Guyana. And returning to Guyana, having played in the various clubs there, I was recommended highly to the officers, NCOs clubs in the base in Guyana. And from Trinidad, I entered the base in Guyana and I started to play for the Yankees there. And from the reputation I had in Trinidad, they was happy to have me when I returned. So I remained on the base there for approximately 3 months before I got back into the city playing with the Yankees there.
But what about the local population? In terms of the local people, were they able to go on the base? Were there some form of permission they have to get before they could hear you perform?
Well, I'll tell you.
How were you able to bridge that gap in terms of on the base, or whether were you playing in the communities?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because when we arrived in Guyana after our tour in Trinidad, the natives, they call the workers, the local people who works on the base proper, they call them natives. And when they heard that my band arrived at the air base, it was confusion there, because we played at the officers club, and all the natives around the area in the base, they came out to hear us because they used to hear us broadcasting from Trinidad. So it was an opportunity for them, having heard us there and the air base in Guyana. So we played for the officers club, service club, NCOs club, and Puerto Ricans club. The service club, let me make an explanation. The service club belongs to all the soldiers. They all mix together. The officers club is exclusive only for officers. NCO club is only for NCOs. But the Service club is for everybody. So we played for that.
In terms during that time, you had any records, recordings?
No, I had no commercial recording. We had just domestic recording then. But I'll tell you, after some years, wasn't long after that, I did my first recording for Cook Recording Company from the United States of America, based in Trinidad. Cook Recording Company. Can I tell you? Can I explain?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Cook, Emery Cook was the man who had a recording company based in Trinidad. He heard about the steel bands in Trinidad, and on his way going to Trinidad, he was informed that there was a steel band by the name of Brute Force in Grenada. And curiosity, he stopped in Grenada and he heard a band in Grenada and he was highly impressed. So he recorded the Brute Force steel band, comprised of 6 great musicians who used to be playing instruments before. That's saxophones, the keyboards, and things like that. And they did such a wonderful job because they were practicing. So he got interested and he recorded them and he came back to the United States of America and he put the Brute Force on wax. And they were established. At this time, the Trinidadians felt it was a piece of injustice to them because they are the one who originated steel band. So when he went to Trinidad to record the Trinidadians, they were annoyed with him. But you know, like everything, it's commerce and opportunities there.
But the Antiguans, if I should stipulate, also they are claiming the right to being the first in hand. But I think in terms of the Caribbean, you have to look in terms of the oil fields and the influence. And during that time, in terms of migration from the different Caribbean territories, from people from Barbados to Trinidad, the Grenadians to Trinidad, St. Lucians in terms of the part of the oil industry there and oil exploration. So I think there was a kind of cross.
Well, let me tell you something about that further. To be honest, having heard and mixed with Trinidadians and lots of musicians who left their international instruments and picked up the steel pan business, they told me, and I was highly impressed, that this thing was originated from Trinidad and no other country. But the other Caribbean islands and countries, they picked it up seriously. And because I can remember Guyana had a steel band by the name of Texicans, they were playing just as good and better than the best in Trinidad. They even went to Trinidad and the competitions there. And it was surprising to the Trinidadians that a steel band from Guyana, where steel band were originated, to compete with the steel bands in Trinidad, and they all did a good job, and that's how it came about.
Well, what about the influence of other Caribbean individuals through migration, the influence of migration that you might think might have some kind of, not just a cultural drawback, but in terms of a cultural impact on the music in the Caribbean?
Well, I'll tell you something. Every year when Carnival season concludes in Trinidad, the Calypsonians, they used to go to various islands and come to Guyana. Guyana is not an island.
Yes.
And they did a good job there, and they explored the interest of people seeing the Calypsonians live. And I was always fortunate to be playing with these Calypsonians because having went to Trinidad, I picked up the style, and we always made it our duty to know what's going on. And then I've been going to Trinidad every year through the Rudolph Circuit. The Rudolph Circuit is the people who had the Rudolph cinemas, and they used to sponsor my band, so I used to go every year. And that's how I became involved. And it was very interesting that people look out for the Calypsonians every year. Not only touring Guyana, they tour other Caribbean islands. And it was something that people picked up. That's how Calypso get into the hearts of people.
How do you see in terms of the influence of science and technology, you know, the different types of electronic gadgetry that we have.
Well, that's very, very interesting question.
And in terms of communication, you know, you have a lot of people today are doing exclusive promotion, whether television, radios. What form of, what do you think in terms of what influence? Is it, you think it's a great impact today in terms of the television, radio? During those days it was like footwork. Most of the promoters have to go, you know, from house to house, or they have a bell cry of a specific activity.
Well, let me tell you, you know, the old people say you always have to creep before you walk.
Yeah.
When it comes to recordings, technology in the past 30 years ago, conditions was adverse. I can remember when we started to do recording, we recorded in one microphone hanging on a wire, a piece of strings, and to take the level to start the recording, we have to be shifting our instruments all around for that one microphone to pick up all the instruments to get a level. The operator found it very tedious to get a level. I remember I went to Radio Demara studio to make an LP, and we went 6 o'clock in the morning, the evening, and we never came out from the studio until the next morning, 7 o'clock. It took us approximately 3 hours to get a level, one microphone. The drum, one time the drum is too loud, one time we couldn't hear the piano and the sax section and the brass section and things like that. So that took a lot of time. Technology has developed today. They're using more than one microphone, so they have channels. The operator, engineer, most operators who are doing recordings today, they are musicians. Those days that I'm talking about, they were only, I don't know how to style them. They weren't musicians.
They just had the resources.
Right,
right. Musician.
Right, and they do everything. It's not just a normal idea to just use their influencer and their ideas or to take tapes. And then if they feel that it's good, they record.
Well, how, in terms of, that's a very relevant point in terms of, what about legal issues in terms of the rights of the musicians? Were there unions in that, copyright laws?
Yes.
You know, today you have a familiar slogan, you know, where you know, you copy someone's material and you could be sued.
Right. Well, if you can remember rightly, the rum and Coca-Cola,
yes,
they had a big story over that. The Calypsonian who composed rum and Coca-Cola, he was a Trinidadian. I can't remember his name rightly. And it was established. It had some exposure. But the Andrews sisters from the United States of America, they picked up the opportunity and recorded rum and Coca-Cola without any permission from this guy from Trinidad who composed it. And it got good exposure from the Andrews sisters because it was a good recording. And they went to court. They lost the case. Because, you know, just as the question, to sum up what you were asking here, copywriting and all that kind of a thing, that was an example. That was one of the earliest examples. They stole the tune, and the guy tune was copyrighted, and they didn't know. They didn't know. And took them to court.
Yeah, but I think you had a similar experience in Suriname.
Well, yes, I told you that.
Yeah.
When I made Creolics, I was touring, after I was touring Suriname, and somebody told me that there's a recording studio there playing my records with a different version. They didn't ask me they didn't ask any permission. And when I get into this thing, they were playing the same arrangements, my band, my composition, on a different label. A different label. So the gentleman who sponsored my band to Suriname was the Speaker of the House. His name was Lapienti. And I went to him immediately. And he put me on to his lawyer. And less than 48 hours, The matter was settled and I was compensated with 50,000 guilders.
But what do you think in cases where that you have some Caribbean musicians who were not protected or they weren't aware of their rights during those days? Were there any prominent union representing them, or they just depend on the person who were making the negotiations?
Well, because of incidents like that occurred several times, composers made their tunes and they sang it and other composers stole it, and they made recordings. But what they could have done, they didn't copyright their tune. And who first copyrighted the tune, right, they're the one who has to claim it. So it's been copyrighted. And composers used to be stealing each other's tunes. If they were stupid enough to sing their tunes without having it copyrighted. And ignorance, existed those days quite a lot. Some didn't deliberately do it. They didn't know the facts, the laws. But today it's a different thing. So every composer today, when he composes his tune and you have it, right, you go to the copyright people and have it copyrighted. So you're being protected. Even if he is in the capacity, he can't get a break. There's somebody who likes the tune, they're in the front row, and they come and once he copyrights his tune, and you get somebody to sing the tune, all the royalty goes to that person who copyrighted the tune, because it's his tune. There are many singers out there are singing people's tunes, and they get the laurels, they get the name, but they have to make some agreement to get some compensation, because the chunk of the money goes to the person who composed the tune once he copyrights the tune.
Yeah, can you comment a bit on the Masquerade Band?
Oh yes.
And also the Grand Kuja,
Well,
bottom house dancing.
a lot of bottom house dancing.
Yeah, a lot of young people, today, we are not acquainted with that form, of dancing. We go to a specific dance hall, a nightclub, or a specific hall. Today they have these different video form of entertainment.
Well, in the past 20 years back, we had this society that is raging today. All the kids had, from school to Sunday school, and whenever they hear a recording, no matter what recording it is, they hold that recording. It's an achievement to have a recording. Then they had guys who like to become musicians, but never went through the rudiments of learning a real instrument. But they made their own instrument with tin pans and cups and all kind of, and they formed themselves in little groups.
I guess the bamboo flute was probably...
Right, and things like that. And they will go on the houses and they will dance. They will dance, and that's how the word cudgel, ground cudgel came in. That's how it came in. These people dancing on the bottom houses in different ways, weekends. Not even weekends alone. Those are days they dance Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Once it's fun, dancing. To anything.
I think something should be said pertaining to the bottom house, because someone, in terms of, in the European environment or in the Western culture, that, someone said you're dancing in the basement.
The basement. Well, I'll tell you something.
You have to make that, add a little clarity to that,
Well, speaking about Guyana, as I told you, divided into 3 counties, various villages.
Yeah.
Politically, they say constituency, but the villages. And each village, they have their own fun. But this bottom house entertainment was something very frequent.
Yeah.
That's their only way of entertaining on society, because they had no clubs.
Yeah.
All the clubs they had, used to have a cricket club, which was something classy.
Yeah.
And they'll have rounders, right? And they will have a little dance after they're playing the games, and also the winner, they will have a big thing. But all these things mostly go under the bottom house. And round culture, that's it.
For the masquerade.
Oh, the masquerade. Well, let me tell you something about the masquerade. masquerade band is being featured with actually 3 instruments. They call the snare drum what we call to be snares. This, like this, they call this the snares.
Yeah.
Those days they called the kettle, and they call the bass and the boom. Kettle and the boom. And the flute. And those 3 instruments, they played a particular style of rhythm structure. If you can't dance to that, you're sick. Something wrong with you. Because the littlest child, from the time that rhythm starts up there, you have to be moving. But this masquerade band that you're talking about is usually featured during the festive season, Christmas time. Their villages, each village has a different band. And they started practice since in September, August, September for Christmas. And when the festive season goes on, they go to various districts. One from Buxton come to town, some from town go to Pleasance, integrated all around, celebrating Christmas. And the rhythm structure, if you listen to that thing, that helps to bring out what the drummer has in him, and they will communicate with the people who dancing to it. Then you see what is real art.
Well, I understand formerly during the colonial times, that the masquerade band, they used to have a very difficult time in terms of parading on the streets. They had like certain places that they weren't able to go. And I understand that the market, around the market areas and in the various villages, they were, they most likely on Sundays or weekdays, they used to, since it was an open area, they used to seize that opportunity.
Yes.
To.
Well, I'll tell you what used to happen. In certain areas where the white people live, they felt that they never appreciated it. People who don't know about